Some people walk into a courtroom begging for forgiveness. Others walk in smiling, laughing, or acting like nothing even happened. In the cases you're about to see, the crimes themselves are horrifying, but what happened after may be even worse. Victims who survived things no one should. Families who finally came face to face with the people who destroyed their lives. And defendants whose reactions ranged from cold silence to behavior so disturbing it stunned even hardened judges. Because when the cameras are rolling and there's nowhere left to hide, courtrooms don't just reveal guilt. They reveal who someone really is. She thought she was doing something harmless. A stranger offered her a ride home after a night out, and she said yes. That single decision nearly cost her everything. What happened next wasn't a misunderstanding or bad judgment, it was a calculated trap. Instead of driving her home, he took her somewhere she didn't recognize. Hours turned into days. 4 of them. No phone, no way out, and every moment came with a new threat that she might not survive the night. The only reason anyone even knew something was wrong came down to a neighbor. Someone heard yelling. Someone noticed something felt off. At first, police weren't convinced. But when they finally went inside, they realized the worst-case scenario was unfolding right in front of them. She was alive, but barely. Covered in injuries, disoriented, and terrified, she was pulled from the house as officers put the suspect in cuffs. And that's when the story took an even darker turn. This wasn't a first-time offender. Not even close. Records showed he'd done this before. Multiple times. And somehow, he kept getting another chance. In court, the survivor finally spoke. She described living in constant fear, unsure if she'd make it out alive. The room went silent as the judge reviewed the damage, injuries that would follow her for the rest of her life. And when sentencing came down, it was clear the court wasn't taking any more risks. The man who nearly ended her life would not be free again for decades. But as shocking as this case was, it didn't prepare anyone for what happened next. The courtroom was supposed to be calm that day. Just another hearing, just another defendant, but the tension in the room said otherwise. He was facing charges for taking 2 young lives, including his own ex. The families sat only a few feet away, forced to listen as the details were read out loud. Every word reopened wounds that never had a chance to heal. At first, everything followed the script. The judge spoke, the lawyers stood still, then someone in the gallery snapped. In an instant, grief turned into rage. A family member lunged forward, throwing punches. Another jumped in, then someone else. Deputies rushed toward the chaos as shouting echoed across the courtroom. For several seconds, the man on trial wasn't even the focus anymore. The fight had completely stolen the room. It took multiple officers to separate everyone involved. People were pulled apart, faces were bloodied, and the hearing was brought to a sudden halt. Some of the family members spent the night in jail. Others walked out injured but unashamed. They said they didn't regret a thing. And while the brawl shocked everyone watching, the defendant barely reacted. He sat there, silent, as if none of it mattered. But that lack of emotion would pale in comparison to the next case. Because this time, the public didn't side with the victim. This time, the victim wasn't a stranger or a criminal. He was one of the most powerful executives in America. Early one morning, as he stepped out of a Manhattan hotel, a masked gunman approached from behind. There was no argument, no warning, just several shots fired before the attacker vanished into an alley. By the time police arrived, it was already over. The man who had just been gunned down was the CEO of one of the largest health insurance companies in the country. News spread fast. A high-profile killing in broad daylight usually brings outrage, but this one sparked something very different. Within days, police arrested a 26-year-old college graduate. He claimed he was innocent and refused to give a motive. Surveillance footage showed him calm, almost calculated. Then the internet took over. Instead of universal condemnation, protests broke out. Not against the suspect, but against the industry the victim represented. People flooded the streets accusing the healthcare system of greed, denial, and silent harm. Some even called the accused a hero. Rumors swirled that the suspect had suffered a serious medical injury the year before, possibly tied to a denied claim. Nothing was confirmed. No clear motive ever emerged. Now, the country was split. Was this a senseless act of violence, or the breaking point of a system people felt trapped in? And while adults argued over justice and blame, the next case showed how disturbing things can get when the killer isn't even old enough to drive. It started like something completely ordinary. Two kids met on a neighborhood playground. They talked. They played. Nothing about it raised alarms. But one of them was hiding something. Minutes later, a frantic 911 call came in. A young voice on the line. Shaking. Confused. Admitting he'd just done something he couldn't take back. Another child had been stabbed. At first, investigators struggled to understand why. There was no argument, no history of violence, just a sudden, brutal act that made no sense coming from someone so young. Then the truth began to surface. Behind closed doors, this child had been living a nightmare. Years of extreme abuse, injuries that never healed, punishment so severe it left permanent scars. The court learned he didn't want to live anymore, and believed committing an unthinkable act would force police to end his life. During the trial, something unexpected happened. The boy showed remorse. Real remorse. He admitted he didn't understand why he did it, only that he wished he could undo it. The judge faced an impossible decision: punish him like an adult, or recognize the damage that had already been done to him. In the end, the sentence focused on treatment and time. But nothing could bring back the child who lost his life. And just when it seemed like compassion had reached its limit, the next defendant showed exactly what no remorse looks like. Online, he looked like a devoted husband and a loving father. Millions knew him for his humor, his impressions, his larger-than-life personality. But off-camera, everything was falling apart. Behind the scenes, his marriage was unraveling, and jealousy was eating him alive. When he found out his estranged wife had invited a male friend into the apartment, something in him snapped. Without her knowing, he entered the building with a weapon hidden under his jacket. He moved quietly, too quietly. A neighbor's security camera captured the moment that changed everything. Then came the call. Instead of denying what he'd done, he confessed, casually, over the phone to his own mother. By the time police arrived, two people were already gone. When officers rushed inside, the scene left even seasoned deputies shaken. The bodies were still on the couch. The silence was overwhelming. He fled with his young child in the car, but it didn't take long to catch him. In court, he blamed substances. He blamed his mental state. He claimed he wasn't himself. But when the victim's family finally confronted him, the mask slipped. The anger, the defensiveness, the complete lack of empathy. He offered an apology only after realizing there was no escape left. And even then, many believed it was just another performance. The judge wasn't convinced. He would never walk free again. But if you think adults are capable of the worst, the next cases prove age doesn't always matter. In these next cases, the defendants weren't hardened criminals. They were teenagers. Families sat in court trying to understand how someone so young could cause so much damage. Parents replayed every moment, wondering where things went wrong. One teen snapped inside her own home. The attack was quick, calculated, and caught on camera. Afterward, she acted disturbingly calm, texting friends as if nothing had happened. When the verdict was read, she showed no reaction at all. In another case, warning signs had already appeared. Authorities had even paid a visit months earlier after a threat surfaced online. The teen denied everything. His father believed him. The police walked away. Months later, those same warnings became reality. A school was thrown into chaos as shots rang out. Students ran. Teachers tried to protect their classrooms. By the time officers arrived, multiple lives were already lost. The investigation revealed a devastating detail. The weapon used wasn't stolen. It had been given to him by the one person who was supposed to protect him. Now, both father and son were facing life-changing consequences. Some teens cried in court. Others stared straight ahead. But one thing was clear: once the line was crossed, there was no going back. And somehow, the behavior in the next courtroom would be even harder to watch. By the time he reached sentencing, everyone in the room was exhausted. The victim's family had already said their goodbyes through tears. But the defendant? He was smiling. As the victim's sister described the pain of losing someone she loved, he laughed. Not once. Not accidentally. Over and over again. Loud enough for the judge to notice. Clear enough for everyone to see. The courtroom froze. The judge stopped the proceedings and warned him. This was his moment to show respect. To show anything. Instead, the behavior got worse. He talked back. He mocked the process. He insisted he was innocent while grinning through the family's suffering. Finally, the judge had enough. He was ordered out of the courtroom mid-sentencing, escorted away while still shouting. His absence didn't delay the outcome. The decision had already been made. A sentence measured in decades was handed down. Life behind bars. No sympathy. No second chances. While the family found some closure, the image of a man laughing during their pain burned into everyone watching. But as disturbing as that was, the next defendant didn't laugh until he realized where he was headed. At first, no one suspected him. He was familiar, polite, someone the victim trusted enough to let inside her home. That trust was shattered in minutes. An elderly woman was attacked inside her own house, left badly injured and terrified. When police arrived, the details didn't add up. The attacker seemed to know the layout. He moved with confidence. Too much confidence for a stranger. Investigators followed the evidence, and it led straight back to someone close by, a teenager who had visited her before. At first, he denied everything. He claimed he'd never even been in certain rooms. Then the DNA results came back. There was no explaining it away. No story left to hide behind. When confronted, even his own guardian struggled to process what was happening. She begged him to tell the truth. Not for the court, but for the woman whose life had been permanently changed. His confession was sealed under the law, but the outcome wasn't. In court, he pleaded guilty. The sentence ensured he would spend most of his life behind bars. And just like that, the final illusion was gone. Evil didn't always look monstrous. Sometimes, it looked ordinary, right up until the moment it wasn't. Courtrooms are supposed to be places of justice. But sometimes, they become something else entirely, a window into the darkest parts of human behavior. Some of the people you just saw begged for forgiveness. Others blamed everyone but themselves. And a few didn't even pretend to care. They laughed. They raged. They showed exactly who they were when it mattered most. For the victims and their families, no sentence is ever enough. Years behind bars can't undo the damage, and time doesn't erase what they were forced to live through. But these moments matter, because when the doors close and the verdict is read, the truth is impossible to hide. And the most chilling part? These weren't monsters hiding in the shadows. They were ordinary people, until they weren't.